Well, hello, welcome to Date Night. My name is Jay, and this is my wife, Emily. And we are here tonight to talk about fighting fair. And we got put on this topic because we're such good fighters that actually we really don't fight that much. And hopefully that means that we have some stuff to share. Some of the ways that we have kept from getting into some real big, full-blown out arguments. So I'm just going to walk through a few little principles. And if the thing is, disagreements are going to happen. You're going to have things that one of you sees one way and one of you sees the other way. There's going to be times when one of you fails to do something that you said that you were going to do, or maybe did something that you weren't supposed to do. So we're going to have those conflicts and disagreements, but the magnitude of our fights and maybe the fallout from them doesn't have to be as big as they are sometimes. And some of these, if we'll just ingrain in our minds a few simple rules that we both agree to walk by, then we can help a lot. All right, I'm going to walk through a few simple steps that maybe that you can ingrain in yourself and try to think about these ahead of time and remember them, so when you get into arguments and when you get into conflict, you have these things already in your mind and you're not scrambling for them. Because I remember one of the things early in my marriage that I found was that I had walked through marital counseling, premarital counseling, and had been told these things, and when I was told them then, I was like, yeah, I know all this. But when I got into the marriage, I'd totally forgot them, and so it took failing a couple times and then somebody else reminding me about them to come back. So these are the ones that I've found really have been helpful. And the first one, as simple as it sounds, is just don't fight. You don't always have to fight about stuff. There are a lot of times, and I think if you look back in the conflicts that you've had, a lot of them never had to be conflicts. They never had to be fights. They could have been disagreements. They could have been, a small argument, but they didn't have to be a fight. And you can realize you can choose not to take the bait. You can choose not to up and escalate the argument. And so the first one is just don't fight. The second one that goes along with that is, if you find yourself getting into a fight, if you realize that, stop trying to win. And what I mean by that is there's a big difference between winning the argument and winning the fight and actually winning in the relationship. And what I've found is the more often that I win the fight, the more wrong I am in the relationship. And so that means that I take a whole different set of weapons into it, because what happens is when you get into a fight, you stop trying to get your point across, and at some point you cross that line and you're just trying to hurt the person. So if in the beginning you can step back and say, I'm not trying to win and get my way, but I do want to be heard, and in order to be heard I need to hear them. It's just a different mentality, and sometimes that can help just de-escalating. The third, and these became real practical and real helpful, stick to the subject. If you do get into a disagreement, if you do get into an argument, what happens is this. If my wife comes to me with something that I've clearly done wrong, and I'm the one that did it, and I'm totally guilty, like for instance, this seems minor, but this is how fights start. I take my headphones and I stick them in my cargo pockets, and then they get washed, and it's my responsibility to empty my pockets before they get washed. And I don't know how many earbuds I've gone through like that. And it is a small deal, but she could come to me and ask something about that or mention that, and she could be a little bit annoyed about it because it costs money every time I got to replace them. And I'm totally guilty of it, and I can't say anything about that. So what I tend to want to do is think up something that she's done, say, oh yeah, but you did this. And so I bounce to that subject, and if she feels cornered in that subject, then her tendency could be to want to bring in something else. She actually doesn't do that very well. She doesn't do that very much. She's good about it. But sticking to the subject is a big deal. If your disagreement starts about one thing, stay on that one thing. And if other disagreements come out in that discussion, don't try to solve them all right then. Realize, do one thing at a time. Bite one nugget at a time. Otherwise, you'll have a war, and you won't even ever resolve what the initial thing was about. Number 4, never use always or never in there. And I know I said never, but don't use those words, because nobody always does something and nobody never does something. And when somebody comes at me and they say, well, you always do this, they're not critiquing a behavior that I had. They're hitting my character. And that's a lot more hurtful, and it puts my guard up, and it puts me on the defense. And I don't really care so much about their feelings anymore, because they've just totally assassinated what I do all the time. So just eliminate always and never from the discussion, and it can de-escalate it. Another one is allow for a timeout. Not everything has to be done right then. Not every argument has to be done right then. I think especially for guys, this is actually for guys and females, depending on how you're wired, this is really big, because you think about it as a guy, most of your life you've not had long arguments. You have an argument and then it gets physical and then it's done. Well, that's absolutely not acceptable in a marriage, but guys a lot of times aren't equipped to continue in a perpetual argument, and they just short circuit. So I think it's really good. Allow for either side to say, hey, I need a timeout. I need to collect my thoughts. I need to cool down. Can we come back together in an hour? Can we come back together in a couple hours and talk about this? And then while you're away during that time, it's a good time to pray, to think through the subject, to think through what are they feeling? Why do they feel this? And when you pray, not just to pray, God, help me get my way, help them to see my side, but genuinely pray for the best for your spouse. And it does make a difference. It's really hard to fight with somebody that you're actively praying for. Another one that can go along with that timeout is schedule a time to talk. A terrible time to bring up conflict is as you guys are walking out the door, or in a couple minutes before all the kids get around. Some things need time. And so you can say, hey, if you see that your spouse comes at you with something that is important to them and they're a little heated on, rather than dismissing it or rather trying to fix it inside a couple minutes, just say, hey, I see this is a big deal. What about 8 o'clock tonight or 8:30 tonight? We'll get the kids in bed and we can sit down and actually talk about this. And I promise that I'll pray about this during the day, and will you pray about it during the day? That way, when you get together, instead of arming yourself, you've got your spirit in the right spot on it. Then finally, practice reflective listening. What I mean by that is, a lot of times in a disagreement, if Emily's talking to me, my natural tendency can be, as she's talking, if we're already disagreeing, I'm already thinking about the point that I want to get across. And so I don't really hear what she says, and as soon as she's done talking, I'm just ready to give my point. And reflective listening, active listening is reflective listening. I listen to what she says, and when she's done, I try to restate to her, so what I'm hearing is this. I'm hearing that you are seeing this, and it's making you feel like that. And that way she has a chance to say, yes, that's exactly right, or no, you're not getting what I'm saying. If you do this, it slows down the disagreement. It gives your spouse a chance to feel like that you're genuinely hearing what they have to say. And sometimes it can keep you from going off in a rabbit trail, because sometimes you're not hearing correctly. So rather than work on your next point, work on actually hearing what they have to say. Work on being able to communicate that back to them. Emily, I was going to ask you to share just a couple thoughts of what works for you. What keeps you out of disagreements, or if you find yourself in them, how do you keep them from escalating? What do you do?
A few of the things that have been really helpful for me in learning how to best succeed is if there is a really big subject that we're both feeling really passionate about, having it a certain way, the best thing for me is generally to walk away and pray about it for a while. And it seems like the Lord is able to kind of work in my heart and allow to soften me. And also, if there is something that Jay has done that has hurt me, then I can choose to forgive him before we go and discuss whatever it could be, and that I can allow the Lord to soften my heart, so that when I come to him, I'm not trying to win the argument, but I'm coming to heal and mend our relationship, and to let him know that he is more important than winning something, but this is how I feel. And I don't know, I'm really thankful. And
yeah, these things, they do work. One final thought I want to leave you with. We fight more, we as people, we fight more when our love bank is low. And what I mean by that is every interaction that you have with your spouse is either making a little deposit or it's taking a little withdrawal from your love tank. And you know, you think about it when you are dating, you're on more of your best behavior, you're together more, you're not sharing finances, you're not sharing a lot of house and kid stress. So you have a lot of these deposits in there and things are really happy and glowing. Then when you get married, all of a sudden you're combining bills, you had kids in the mix, you had in-laws in the mix. And so even though you have positive things happening, you have a lot of negative ones as well. And what can happen, even over the course of a normal marriage, if we don't pay attention to it, we can slowly be making withdrawals to where what used to be happy and loving and exciting can feel raw just by the natural course of life. So one of the things involved in fighting is when you're not fighting, actively be working to make deposits in your spouse's love tank. Actively be working to do things to create enjoyment and create just a positive experience between the two. As we send you out today, that's kind of our primary thought. We don't want you to practice fighting fair on your date. That would be kind of a horrible waste of time. But what would be good is as you look over these things, maybe reflect back, spend a little bit of time reflecting back, which of these would be really helpful for us to remember. You may say we're really prone to not sticking to the subject, or we are really prone to going always or never, or yeah, we're the kind of people that need a timeout in there. And maybe if you talk and agree on that sum, I don't want you to spend time fighting on your date. That'd be miserable. What I would like is look over this list and then look through some of the other questions that just hopefully will help you make some deposits in your love tank. It's easy for me to not fight with Emily when I know that she's out for my best. It's easy for me to give her the benefit of the doubt when I actively see and remember the things that she does for me all the time. So maybe if it were somebody else, the exact same circumstance could lead to a fight, but because our love tank is high, there's some grace there and we don't have to enter into fighting. And so that's our hope for you guys. Go out and look through these things, implement the ones that are helpful for you, and just work tonight on increasing your love tank a little bit. Guys, have a great time.